Welcome, I'm Darren, and I'll be your professor today as I look at 1996 Topps Gilt and 1996 Topps Laser Football. In the mid-1990s, Pacific had really raised the game in terms of just what cards could be. They'd been exploring the boundaries in many different ways. They developed cards that were folded. They were selling cards one per pack. They had created an entire die-cut card set, and they had expanded cards out to even bigger than the famous tall boys, to where they were 3.5 by 5 inches. They really kept pushing the envelope and providing different concepts for what a card could normally be thought of, and raising the stakes for everybody else. By 1995, Upper Deck had joined in with SPX, where they had not only a die-cut set, but they also had their set completely done with holograms. Now, Topps had done a little bit by this time. They had already created sets with complete parallels. They had also added refractors to the whole discussion of cards. But they hadn't pushed too far out of the boundary from there, and in 1995 they introduced a new card cutting technique for inserts in their Stadium Club cards. This cutting technique used lasers, and it gave them the ability to make really intricate cuts deep within the card, which brought light through and created a really cool effect that nobody had really been able to touch upon. One of the best examples of these is football's MVP set. And here you have text cut right into the card design. Stadium Club would continue to use this with their triumvirate cards as well as others over the years, and the delicate level of detail that they put into these cards was really amazing. So in 1996 it made sense when they decided to make a complete set for football as well as for baseball, using not just die cutting but actually using the laser cutting process. And they called this set, very cleverly, Topps Laser. Now the baseball set used the intricate design process really well, and the cards have a full utilization that is deeply inspired. But with football, they really dropped the ball in the design process. They basically have two parts of the card. They have a picture on one side, and on the other side they have a big strip of foil. And the foil has laser cutting along the edge, and it has some cutting within the foil itself with the player name and the team name, as well as some other little elements popped in there. The design otherwise is really pretty lacking. Foil comes in two different colors. It comes either in gold or it comes in silver. The gold is for all NFC players and the silver is for all AFC players. And likewise on the back of the card has either red or it has blue. Oddly, it has red for the NFC and blue for the AFC, even though the official color for the AFC is red and the official color for the NFC is blue. So they swapped those for reasons I'll never understand. But the design potential for this card was really lost with football because one, the basic design was lackluster, but two, they really didn't do anything with it. You either design a card so that all the cards come out the same way, or if you're going to intermix them, it's nice to actually play some sort of a game with it, and they didn't. The cards are haphazard, and with the two colors of foil, the gold and the silver keep popping up at different times in the set, so there's no continuity there, and the side that the foil is on keeps going back and forth. There's no rhyme or reason. So even if you put together one team set, even though the foil is all the same, the position on the card of the foil and the trim keeps going back and forth one side or the other. They didn't do anything like pairing two cards up in order to create one larger card using the technique, even though they were using that in Stadium Club. So as a main set, it's an okay set. It's kind of cool in a way, but the cards are pretty bland, and the set overall leaves a lot to be desired. But fortunately, they did put inserts in where they put in the care that they had been doing in Stadium Club. The first insert is the draft picks insert, and this card actually is kind of it has some similarities to the main card. It has a rainbow foil on one side, and it has the name of the set, draft picks, cut into it. But in this case, the text actually spills out of the card, so it creates a very impressive edge to the card. And then they had a whole bunch of little cuts here and there and stuff. So in terms of the overall design of the card, it lacks a lot, but the card is interesting enough that it kind of holds up on its own. Now, unfortunately, because of the foil and because of the text hanging out on little pieces of wood on the edge, these cards do have a tendency to have some abrasion marks. That to get a pristine one is pretty difficult. Now, all of these cards are made with a very thick cardstock, almost a wood, not quite a wood, but they did that for rigidity. And with the main cards, you don't really notice it because the cards are all very firm. But in the Draft Picks insert set, the delicacy of the elements off to the side kind of enunciates the fact that these cards were designed to hold up somewhat well. With the Stadium Club cards, they were all much thinner, but an insert card you tend to take more care with. So in the case of Topps Laser, they had to make thicker cards for the base cards. Now, to get back to the inserts, the second insert that they had was the Bright Spots insert set. And this refers to young players who are really coming into their own. The card is a very, very basic design concept. It's a player with a gold foil background, and then etched into the card through the laser cutting process is the name Bright Spots and a big array of light rays surrounding the player. The card doesn't seem all that great until you get light behind it, and then the card just comes to life. It's a really, really cool card because it capitalizes on what these cards do best, which is utilize the card space and then the ability to either see through it or for light to pass through it. But the insert set that really holds up this entire set is the Stadium Stars insert set. And this is a single fold over card. It has a holographic star pattern on the front, and then they did a very, very intricate cutting process on the front in order to create a team helmet and a football pattern behind it. And through those gaps you can see into the inside of the card where you have a player picture with that same football printed onto the next card. When you open up the card, you get to see it in full, and then the back of the front light passes through, and it doesn't really do anything except it just kind of helps to show the intricate detailing that they built into the card. They're fantastic cards, and it shows the capability that I wish that they'd really put into the rest of the set. So overall, the set's okay, but it didn't really do very much, but the inserts they really pulled off. Now, with these cards, they came in an unusual format in terms of within the pack there were two checklists that sandwiched the cards, and the checklists were significantly bigger than the rest of the cards. And they did this so that the cards would sit inside of the wrapping to, one, protect the card, but also, two, it limits the ability for collectors to run their hands along the edge of the pack and feel if there's an insert card inside of it. So it does double duty, but it is an odd way to experience a pack where when you open it up, they're sandwiched between two big checklists, and you can't do anything with the checklists. They're so big they don't fit into any sheets, so they truly are throwaways. Now, 1996 also saw another idea that they came up with that was kind of inspired from Playoff. Playoff, when it started out, it was trying to capitalize on the idea of teams in the playoffs. And so for 1996 Topps Gilt, they actually made a Pro Bowl set. This is only the players that were in the Pro Bowl, AFC and NFC. And it's also a jumbled card set. They don't have a distinct pattern for all the players. But the players come with cards that are red or they're blue, but in this case, instead of being a straightforward red or blue, they went with a Hawaiian theme, and they either have volcanic fire or they have waves, and they have tikis on either of these cards as well. But the card set is built on the concept of the same thing that is done with playing cards and sometimes with Bibles, which is to put a gilt edge around the outside, so that when you have an entire deck of cards, the whole edge of the cards all come across as one big gold face. And with these cards, they did exactly the same thing. These cards are thick, just like Topps Laser, which gives you a really big edge for all that gold to show up on. So even with one card, the gold edge, the gilt edge, stands out. And then they have a parallel where instead of a gold edge, they have platinum. And likewise on the face of the card, the logo is also in gold or in platinum. So that's basically the card set. They really didn't do anything with it because the basic concept of the set was the gilt cards, the parallels, and these are all the Pro Bowlers, which means you have very few stars, but you have a lot of offensive linemen. And that's a bold thing to do with a card set. Usually with a card set, you want to get a lot of star cards in there. And when you're doing only the Pro Bowl players, you're only going to get a couple of quarterbacks, a couple of running backs, a couple of wide receivers. There aren't going to be that many star players, but the number of offensive linemen and special teams players is going to be very large in an offset percentage than what you're used to. So the card set didn't have longevity in terms of people really pursuing quality cards because there were just so few of them. Now the set does have one insert set. This is the Definitive Edge set, and it has 5 different themes to it. Each one of the themes has its own name. I don't really need to go into it, but they're still based on the same Hawaiian premise because that's where the Pro Bowl is. Now neither of these cards really stand out as anything really special. It was an interesting little quirky thing that Topps threw together. It was fun to see them, fun to collect them, but they very quickly kind of ran out their time. And then they were kind of forgotten afterwards, which means that they're kind of there to be discovered later on. For the most part, it's fun to get a set, have that set off in your collection, and not really look into it very much unless every once in a while you pull it out and it becomes kind of a new discovery. So that's kind of what these ultimately proved to be. Topps didn't have the same level of creativity that other card companies had, but they didn't really need to because they built really solid core sets, and when they did do something kind of off-center, it really stood out. What they did with Finest, and especially what they did with Topps Chrome, are pretty eternal sets that have very effectively held the company up. So this little foray was fun, but wasn't necessary for them in the long run. So that's basically Topps Laser and Topps Gilt. As a person who was there collecting these at the time, I don't really get too excited about them, but that may not be the case now. It may be that people discovering it years later are able to see it in a very different way from me. Or you may very much agree. I'm curious to hear what you think in the comments below. I hope that you like this video, and I hope that you'll subscribe to the channel in order to find other videos that I'm making. And thank you very much for watching.